So I was told that the first 20 seconds don't pick up on a live stream once it's being viewed again. So, hey everyone, hey Wellness Crew, and welcome to a continuation of today's reading of Richard Rudd's Fragments of Light, Insights, Breakthroughs, and Epiphanies. The original live stream that I was doing was interrupted by a phone call, so I do apologize. I don't know how it ended, but my screen went black, so I'm going to pick up roughly around where I left off. The rainbow body is explored more deeply within the set of teachings that I call the Corpus Christi, meaning literally the body of Christ. It is the science of our higher reality, a key to the true underlying nature of all human beings, and one of the journeys of the gene key synthesis. As we ascend in understanding through the subtle bodies and their planes, and the relationships of the different layers within the framework, our embodiment of the unified consciousness of all that is expands. An archetype can be a lens giving you a view into the holographic interdimensional cosmos. Here is an example. I was walking at dawn one morning when I saw two doves sitting together in the sunlight. It was beautiful, and on one level it was an archetype, because doves symbolize love and peace. Two doves sitting together in the first rays of sunlight could be seen as a classic archetype of love. But I could also look at those birds and see two living creatures that could be shot and dissected to see what they are made of. On the other hand, if I were looking through a poet's eyes, I might write about the doves representing a cosmic love between yin and yang. The higher cultural forms, such as poetry, music, and art, those highest forms of human aspiration, touch the threshold of the causal plane, and they download the archetype. But even the highest intellectual thought will not reach the causal plane, because there is a kind of veil here which the logical mind cannot penetrate. To enter into the causal plane, you have to let go of the mind. It involves a form of higher thinking, imbued with knowing, so it is a very high state of consciousness. It can be accessed through deep insights, epiphanies, and breakthroughs. This is how the causal plane comes into human consciousness, through sudden rushes of knowing that enter into our physical, emotional, and mental bodies, in the awe moments, when you suddenly know the truth of something, although they may, at some level, feel more akin to memories. It was Jung who first used the term archetype, and who coined the phrase shadow archetypes, and he was one of the great exponents of the archetype. Other great thinkers have explored archetypes, right back to Plato, but Jung in particular saw them as coming from the collective consciousness. They are fundamental truths encoded through the different lenses that humans have picked up. There is a whole spectrum of archetypes which interlock, and they are not all pretty. The entertainment and publishing industries are in the business of decoding and translating archetypes into films and books. For example, in the horror genre, what is a vampire? Where has this figure come from? It is an archetype of a certain behavior or a certain pattern. The vampire can be seen as a shadow archetype, and it represents something that perhaps our mind cannot fully grasp, although we might experience vampire-like behavior in others. We might even exhibit it ourselves when we latch on to something and won't let go, and keep trying to suck the blood out of it, which is a selfish kind of behavior in that sense. Note that experiencing a shadow archetype on the causal plane does not mean that you will identify with it, whereas you will if you view it from the emotional, the astral plane. Imagine, for example, that you are sleeping, and you are in your astral body, dreaming about a vampire. On the astral plane, you believe that you are separate from the vampire, and that it is coming to get you. On the causal plane, however, you know that the vampire is an archetype. It is a fractal aspect of truth, and you cannot distinguish it from a heightened aspect of truth. You would not discriminate between the archetype of love, as seen in the two doves, and the archetype of the vampire, because they are both made of light, because at their core they are both experiences of the collective consciousness. So seeing things from the causal plane is a real quantum leap for humans, because it means we no longer identify with the dramas of the world. For instance, there are people who believe that there are men in black, or some kind of dark cabal, controlling the world, trying to take away our freedom and our power, and there might be some truth in that. But seen from the causal plane, such conspiracies are not identified with, because you realize that they are all facets of the Maya, the illusory drama, the theater that we are all players in. Once you realize that, you can still enjoy the good versus evil game, because we happen to be in one, but you don't get caught in it. Seeing things from this higher plane means that you are no longer so attached to your own frame of reference, and you begin to appreciate the true patterns of life and nature. Archetypes are everywhere. Once we begin to decode them, we realize that we are enmeshed in them, and many of us are lost in them. Now you might ask, how can I get to the causal plane? The answer is through deep contemplation, and you have to be really courageous because you are contemplating something about yourself, the way that you are seeing something, or any discomfort you may be experiencing. You have to take a long, honest look at yourself, and the beauty is that if you go into deep contemplation or meditation for periods of time, you will begin to see things clearly and understand. The art of contemplation is key and is something that I really recommend learning. It is quite simple, and when we start to create pauses in our day and in our life, we are opening up the space for contemplation and for the insights to drop in. There may be some great mystery in your life that you don't understand, a relationship, your health, or anything that you want to get to the bottom of. Or it could be that you had a significant dream that you don't understand. Whatever it is, you contemplate it and you do not give up. You contemplate it by filtering it with your mind and your feelings, and you go on contemplating it until the penny drops and you have an insight. Because over a period of time, if you stay relaxed, the causal plane will open up and the insight will come, almost certainly, at the oddest or most unexpected time. It might be triggered by something that someone says, by an event or a dream. The insight drops in, the skies open, and you realize that you have gained yourself a little bit of freedom. A lot of freedom, actually, because you are no longer being possessed by the archetype, because you are now seeing that whatever the archetype is, and even if it appears to be sinister, it is made of light. You do not discriminate between good and bad archetypes, and therefore you can exist in a deep state of trust. Our lives are filled with archetypes that can be decoded. Visual images of archetypes start to form on the causal plane, but they are not just visual. They are impregnated with feeling, texture, color, shape, and memory. They are multidimensional. So archetypes are multidimensional facets of consciousness and mystery. And the more that you can decode inside your being, the more you will rise towards the Buddhic plane, and you realize that there is light behind everything, and that everything can be reduced to light. You cannot see that from the mental plane, because there your thoughts can be quite interdimensional and advanced. You might have a thought about the unity of consciousness, for example, but the actual experience of it could be very different. On the causal plane, however, you experience it and remember it because you inhabit it not just through intellectual understanding, but beyond that in knowing. The knowing is beyond both intellectual understanding and feeling, but it contains both. The Buddhic plane, which lies just beyond the causal plane, does not deal in archetypes. Images and archetype are not formed there. So when the Buddhic plane starts to come through, you no longer need to think about the archetypes. And as your contemplation expands, You begin to experience those higher states of absorption where you are filled with light and love. It is just pure light, undifferentiated, coming through the heart center, and it is all about experiencing feelings of exalted ecstasy and cosmic love. The magic of the art of contemplation leads us through insights, epiphanies, and breakthroughs into the field of merging, where we realize that even though everything differentiates as it comes down into the form and into our mind, there are higher levels in which things are undifferentiated, while unified in diversity. That is the real insight. We don't just merge into a soup. We actually experience the merging as it is occurring, but we also experience the differentiation as it comes right down in our life and our mind. It is an epic journey. The body of glory. Amram Michael Ivanov was a great master from Bulgaria who has had a deep influence on me. One of his teachings was on the concept of the body of glory, about which he said, God dwells in the body of glory. The New Testament tells us that we possess an incorruptible body of pure light, which we call the body of glory. In the very distant past, this body enabled human beings to travel through space and to see and understand the whole of creation. But as they became more and more deeply immersed in the denser layers of matter, humans neglected their body of glory until it became incapable of manifesting itself. And now we have to reverse this movement and nourish and care for it so that it can be restored to its former function. It is thanks to our body of glory, after all, that we shall live eternally and recapture the powers that were ours in the past. All the forces of creation are at the disposal of those who nourish their body of glory until it attains its full stature, for it is in this glorious body, not in our physical body, that God dwells. The body of glory, or the rainbow body, is the higher harmonic body of our true being. We used to inhabit it, and we still do at some level, but in this phase of our evolution, we have forgotten it. Yet you can nourish the body of glory through grasping moments of awe, moments of transport. Every time you have a transcendent moment or an epiphany, your body of glory is flooded with light and it expands. As we keep on experiencing those moments, the body of glory will keep growing through the realization of the beauty of life, of all that is best and that is highest. This is why you have to look for those higher things and grasp them. If you keep reading and listening to books and teachings that nourish you, and if you keep opening up to moments of awe, you will keep plugging yourself back into the body of glory. When you experience one of those moments, those rushes, your body of glory responds and grows, and you will feel a flood in your rainbow body as you are reminded of your infinite and eternal nature. Once we have the abilities and the power of creation that Amram Michael Ainvanov spoke of, which we will again one day, everything we think will instantly occur. But just imagine if we had that now. It would be chaos. Because first we have to purify all our karma so that every thought that comes into us is pure. They are not thoughts that come from us, but thoughts that we tune in to that come through us. That is why thought can be so powerful. The body of glory can be reinvigorated through purified thought by nourishing it with the purest and most luminous elements. Just be careful to filter out impurities of thought and feeling. And when you experience a difficult emotion, check in to see what effect that might have on your body of glory. It won't negatively affect it, but you won't be nourishing it, and you will be feeding the shadow body instead. There is a choice of which body you are going to feed through your state of mind, through the law of affinity, through your thoughts, your feelings, and your desires. You draw the surrounding elements and emanations into your aura and into your body of glory. That is how you can capture particles of pure, eternal, incorruptible matter. When we capture just one of those particles, through a moment of transport or transcendence. There is a little atomic explosion through our body of glory. We may experience that as an epiphany, an insight, or as a moment of elation. It is during those moments that the body of glory sends pulses of light through us. So we have to keep our connection all the time, as much as we can, to that higher body, the body of glory. Manjushri's sword. I have a beautiful 120-year-old Tibetan painting called a Thangka. It was given to me by a friend, and it depicts the Bodhisattva Manjari, a male Buddha emanation, wielding a flaming sword. This type of icon, of a being holding a flaming sword, sometimes two-edged, is quite common. Icons of this kind are fascinating to anthropologists for their symbolic meanings, and they can be very powerful when we understand their real meaning. We can then bring their guidance and wisdom into our everyday life, because their purpose is to assist us in transcending time, thoughts, and ideas. For me, the sword that Manjari is wielding represents the cutting power of the higher mind, of clarity and honesty, self-honesty. The sheen on the steel of the blade represents that honesty, the ability to look within yourself and see truth, to see who you are, and what you have done, with clarity and with valor. This is about seeing both the good and the bad, which is actually the foundation of the higher path towards wisdom and awakening. Without this foundation, without the sense of deep stability that comes from that level of courage of looking at yourself, you don't have the foundation to be able to continue up the ladder, to continue to expand. Without honesty, you endanger yourself, because if you open yourself up to higher currents and yet don't see who you are and what you are, then you are in danger of bringing crisis upon yourself. You may be bringing a deep destabilization into your life and basically frying a circuit a circuit somewhere, which is a nice way of saying going a little bit crazy. This combination of being on a spiritual path and yet being unable to be honest with oneself is dangerous. It is precisely when the universe delivers us a cut from Manjari's sword. The sword is two-edged because it cuts both the past and the future. One side cuts the past by severing our attachments to who we think we are, because of who we have been, the things we have done, both positive and negative, as well as the difficulties that we often have in our childhood. We all collect patterns and programs from our peers when we are young, which is part of our ancestral wounding. Manjari's sword helps us to cut away the ties that connect us to these patterns, paradigms, and programs that keep us set on a victim course, and which keep manifesting certain difficulties and dramas in our life. When you're able to cut the past, you also take ownership of it. It doesn't mean that you jettison the past, but that you celebrate it as much as you can, to understand that it is a part of who you are. It has brought you where you are now, whether that is good or bad according to your mind. We are the summation of all that we have done, the good and the bad, and we have to come to terms with all of that inside ourselves. Manjari's sword is very good at helping us to acknowledge it all, without being weighed down by the heavy burden of guilt or shame. The other side of the sword cuts the future, our dreams, our fantasies, our hopes, and sometimes our delusions of what we may become and where we see ourselves going. We need to be able to sever those attachments cleanly, because we don't know what is going to happen in the future, unless you are one of the gifted ones who can see that, which is very rare. The moment a wish is transferred into the mental plane, it becomes an image or a paradigm of something that we would like to happen. We want to have it and to make it come about. We see our life going towards that goal, and we plan the details of how we might like it to look. It is natural for the mind to do that, but of course it is all just in the air, and we don't know whether any of it will occur. Even if intuitively we feel it will, we do not know. But what we do know are the deepest wishes of our soul, and they are something that we can trust and rely on. We can feel the integrity of our heart's wishes, our soul's yearning for something higher, something greater, some sense of wholeness that we can rely on, but everything else is uncertain. Manjuri's sword brings us back to the purity of our uncertainty, without it being destabilizing, because that honest uncertainty is actually very pure. Using Manjuri's sword to cut the past and the future is done simply by looking at yourself with a piercing honesty. You need to look at all that you are, into the dark crevices of your mind, your memory, and your heart, and also under any stones that you find. See the good and the bad and weigh it all with equanimity and without judgment. Then you will see what you are, and you can approach the divide, or the higher, greater world from a place of truth. The codes of the gene keys represent the illusion, the Maya which we inhabit, and they are not just a set of ideas, because they are, in a sense, alive, and they are powerful when you start examining them and applying their wisdom in your own life. You will see that the dramas we experience, the Leelas, games and dances that are played out in our day-to-day lives, are giving us feedback. Because what is inside us will manifest outwardly, and so the experience of a Lila or drama will help us to see more clearly what we are working out inside us. We then have to use our discernment to work out what that aspect is offering us and teaching us. What is your life showing you about you right now? Is it showing you something that you haven't fully admitted about yourself? That is a really positive thing to discover underneath one of those stones inside our nature. I encourage you to be super clear inside yourself about who you are, what you have done, and any delusions you may be holding, or any expectations you may have, and any guilt that you are carrying. None of it is wrong, so just see it for what it is, and from there, from that place of truth, you can progress in a clear way. Life will offer you that progression and teach you, and the Dharma will fuel your progress. You need Manjuri's sword to cut away the delusions. The Vedas give us the image of the Maya, the illusion in which we live that we believe is real, life out here in the phenomenal world, as a net. They call it Indra's net, and it is said that we are caught in it. And the great thing about that is that if you are caught in a net, but you have a sword, you can cut the net and free yourself. You do not have to cut every single knot of the net. You have to cut only 3 or 4 that happen to be next to each other, and then you can slip through into liberation. Consider the junctions that life brings you through, the dramas and the leelas of your outside life. What are they showing you? They are pointing you towards something very specific. If you can listen to what they are teaching you, you can cut those knots in the net, and then something will open inside you. Then you will be presented with another one, and you can cut that one too. It takes what the Buddhist term skillful means, the ability to use the sword to gently cut away the dross, the places where we are dishonest with ourselves, the places of denial. It is important to realize that a sword is a sword, and it needs to be sharp. You can use it gently, but you still have to cut, and it is you that you are cutting, the parts of your illusion. So wield it gently, but also wield it carefully and decisively, with discernment. Have the courage to really look at yourself with candid and penetrating clarity, with brutal honesty, and with deep valor. This is the foundation of self-compassion, to be able to see oneself clearly, taking in everything that you are, the light and the dark, without judgment. Take heart and wield Manjuri's sword gently and with grace. Thank you so much for joining me for today's live stream of Fragments of Light, Insights, Breakthroughs, and Epiphanies, and I will see you on the next video or live stream. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and or join one of the membership tiers as it is popping off, and I'll see you next time.